This is Chamber Voices, conversations with the people that drive local business. Presented by the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce.
Well, hi there and welcome to Chamber Voices. You found the podcast presentation of the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce focusing keenly and squarely on the business community and the individuals that make that community up here in Fort McMurray. I'm really excited today to be joined by Dobie. Now, Gene officially is the president of Genron Enterprises, the general manager, but he's the man who will he'll do what it takes. He'll keep the lights on. He'll change out the coffee if he needs to. You're a boots on the ground kind of guy, aren't you, Gene?
Yeah, I am, Stuart. Thanks for inviting me as well.
We've said this on this podcast many times in the past, but a company that's 15 to 20 years old, I mean, that's almost a heritage business in Fort McMurray. When you're talking 30 or even 40 years old, I mean, you're talking about businesses that literally built this community. And Genron is included in that as a business that's been here practically from the beginning, at least the way that we can understand the beginnings of Fort McMurray these days. Can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to tell you how much I weighed when I was a baby, but I was born and bred in British Columbia, and after high school, I came to work for the company Bond Apply that had worked with companies like Bechtel and Simons in big industry in British Columbia, and they were working here at the Syncrude site they were just building it then. So I came here as a tradesman back close to 45 years ago, 1976, with this company, and worked on the Syncrude site, then over to Suncor on their expansion at the time. They had been operating for some time, and about 4 or 5 years after that, the owners decided that Fort McMurray was a good place to be, and we became established. And that was good for me too, because in construction, you're always moving around. I was up in Inuvik and Whitehorse and across the north, and anywhere they would send me. And so this offered me the opportunity to be at home with my family, which I had started at the time, and be at home every night. So it was a good move for us. And of course, like everyone else back then, you expected to be here for 4 or 5 years and then go back home to your province and lifestyle. But wow. Fort McMurray's held us here for that long, I have enjoyed all of it, even the ups and the downs.
Sure, of which I'm sure you have bore witness to many. Can I just focus on one thing that you said? Because I have now done numerous episodes of this podcast, and more often than not, if I'm talking to somebody who was not born here, or at least came here as a very young child, part of their origin story is something to the effect of, I did this, I came up in this way, I came here, my plan was to be here for 2 years and get out, and here I am still. And it's interesting because, someone who arrives here in 2007, I get it, sure, that wasn't that long ago, but that was still the mindset for individuals even way back in 76 or 75, huh?
Yeah. So that mindset was changed because we got involved in the community. Yeah. My wife got involved in the college. We had started a family. I have 2 grown children now with 5 grandchildren. But we got involved by, coaching Little League and getting the kids onto the ski team and being part of the local church and getting to know our neighbors. And Keanu College was just starting to grow and build at the time. And that was sort of the pivotal factor for us when they got into their second phase of construction. We got a large portion of that project, and that helped us determine that there was more to Fort McMurray than just the mine sites and making money. The winters are long here, and they're cold. And one of the decisions that my wife and I made back then at the time was, because with construction we have a season where we're quite busy, and then we have the winter months that are afford us a little more time, we would leave to go someplace south. And so the first place we went, and first time out of the country, was New Zealand. The furthest away we could get from Fort McMurray, where it was summertime. Yeah, and it was absolutely beautiful. And so that put the bug in us, and we became to realize that Fort McMurray is just a location, and geographically we can go anywhere in the world, and because of the prosperity here and the quality of living that we had, we were able to do that every year. We take the kids out of school.
Yeah.
My kids, were in Cancun before Cancun was even built. There was just beach. We used to go to the old town and take the bus for a few pesos, and my kids would play soccer on the sandy beach
Unbelievable.
with other kids there. So that's what kept us here, was the community as we saw it grow and build, and made many, many friends. And of course, my kids have grown up here too. So and they're still here.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's such a refreshing thing to hear. I kind of consider myself a repatriated Fort McMurrayite. We lived here for a few years. We thought the grass might be greener on the other side, so we left for a little while, determined that really, you're right, there's a sense of prosperity. There's something there's something in this community that is unique, even unique in Alberta. And we were really happy to be coming back. And this for us would have been maybe 3 years ago at this point. But we had that exact same revelation that I think you just described. It's like, sure, the climate is rough up here. Sure, there's certain aspects of it. We're isolated. We're isolated. It's just the reality of living here. But this region affords people a level of prosperity and the ability to pursue the things in life they're passionate about. It's just a part of, it's the way of life up here. It's something that it's hard to describe to people who've not been here before, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, if you want to learn more about Genron Enterprises, they're easy to find online, genron.ca, as well as on Facebook. You can also call their main office if you have an inquiry, 780-743-3448. Gene, can you tell us a little bit about your passions? From what you've described, you're someone who enjoys to travel. You're someone who enjoys to, when the opportunity arises, of course, kind of explore and discover new things. Is that still a passion for you? Is it something that kind of works itself into the kind of work that you still do?
Yes, it is something that's inbred. As a builder, you like creating things. Mm-hmm. And so that's the creative side. When we get to collaborate with an architect and engineers and the client and design a project or building from the ground up and then turn it over to them at the end with the grass and the trees in place and a satisfied customer, that brings me a lot of satisfaction, and that makes me enjoy my job every day. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the collaboration. I enjoy the problem solving. And traveling has really opened my eyes to see the quality of life we have in Canada, not just Fort McMurray, and the benefits that we enjoy and the freedom that we enjoy compared to the rest of the world. But I'm also meeting interesting people as well that can teach you things. Different cultures, different food, different ideas. And, my wife and I were in South Africa a few years ago, and I was listening to a businessman from one of the power companies from the United States. And South Africa is not as stable as you would think. It's a beautiful country, and it's well controlled by the government there. And their challenge was, it was high risk. And so they wanted to see high reward. And he wasn't afraid to state that. Fort McMurray's like that too. We take quite a risk in coming into this environment because we're, reliant upon the resources that we have. And so, I could understand what this fellow was saying. It was actually GE that was looking at investing heavily into South Africa, which didn't really encourage me to want to invest there, but we certainly enjoyed our time. So it's times like that you get to meet people and get ideas that sort of solidify your business thinking, I guess. So when we get involved in a project and we're not given enough information, we're dealing with clients that are difficult, the risk is high. So if you want to go forward, you want to make sure that you're covered, because we're in business to make a modest profit, and that will carry us through into the future and maintain a good, stable business for our clients, not just for now, but maybe 100 years from now.
Yeah,
our business is now close to 70 years old, and we're seeing the second generation come into the business now, and that's quite exciting.
I'm sure you've noted that that's not something that every business owner gets to experience, that next generation being able to come up and seeing, stepping back and seeing what you've built as far as a company, and frankly, seeing the community that you helped to build. Having been in Fort McMurray, having been based out of Fort McMurray for so many years, one of the questions, or I should say one of many questions I really wanted to bring to you was, how have you observed Fort McMurray changing and growing? We know the boom and bust cycle. We know that when things are good here, man, are they ever good, and man, do buildings go up and people show up and start working and living here. But you may have an insight that not many people really have from the beginning till now. How have you seen the changes kind of manifest themselves in town?
Well, when I moved here, Thickwood was just being built, and we didn't have McDonald's.
We didn't have McDonald's.
We didn't even have McDonald's back then. So I had never been to a McDonald's, to tell you the truth, until I visited Hawaii. So, I think I was one of the first or second people to sign up at Mac Island when they built it as a member. And, to see that facility change from what it was to what it is today is amazing. And that's, again, a great quality to our community and for the people here. And, Keanu College, for example, has just grown so much and provided so much opportunity for education and training, and adapted to the community and in business, and obviously to support the mine sites with engineering and some of those key skills that are needed. And that's where I studied communication and human relations, which I knew was an important tool that I needed from going from a tradesman into a position of leadership. And I was quite thankful to have, people at Keanu College that mentored me and helped me get to where I am as a leader in the business and in the community. So we forget about the other small industries here. The sawmill, for example, the Awashko family, a great family that I've known for many, many years, loyal to us as a vendor to provide design and buildings for them. And so we continue to have them as a repeat customer and enjoy those kinds of long-term relationships with the families here in Fort McMurray. Even the golf courses.
Yes.
To have 3 golf courses now that are open for the people that love that sport for that short season.
Mm-hmm.
Back then we didn't have a golf course.
None.
No, none. Oh, sorry, Mac Island.
Okay.
That's right. Mac Island was built back then when they were building it. But they built all the fairways over top of the trees that they knocked down, and so then they had to redo that. I guess that would be probably close to 20 years ago now. But
what about some of your earlier projects? Are there any in town that are of note from many, many years ago that still stand, that we can kind of go by and say, wow, that building's like, almost like a heritage building for the region?
A lot of our projects were out at the plant sites. We helped them, particularly on the Aurora mine, Steep Bank mine. A lot of those buildings, we were part of the design and construction, sometimes with other contractors, sometimes directly with the owners. In Fort McMurray, if you drive along Mackenzie Boulevard, you'll see the big United Rentals building. We constructed that. Northland Mill, when it burnt down, that was an 80,000 square foot facility. We worked with the family there and their engineers to house the equipment inside. They're planer mills, so we help see them sort of diversify and grow through the years. So that's a couple of landmark projects, I guess, that we were involved with.
Well, it's great to get to know Gene Dobie, President and General Manager of Genron Enterprises, as a person, his motivation, what gets him up in the morning, what he's passionate about. In a moment, we're going to talk a bit more about the challenges of being a business owner in this current climate. If you want to learn a little bit more about the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce, I encourage you to visit our website, fortmcmurraychamber.ca. Incidentally, if you're listening to this podcast, you are also a business owner, perhaps a member of the Chamber, and you would like to be featured in an upcoming episode, email me, Stuart McIntosh, at communications@fortmcmurraychamber.ca. We'll be right back with our second half of this interview with Gene Dobie on Chamber Voices.
This is Chamber Voices, conversations with the people that drive local business. Presented by the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back to Chamber Voices as we enter part 2 of our conversation with Gene Dobie, President and General Manager of Genron Enterprises. So Gene, how has business, or how is doing business in Fort McMurray, generally speaking, how has it changed for you since back when you started?
Well, back then, even in large industry, whether it was St. Crude or Suncor or the pulp mills, it was built on relationships. We knew who the buyers were, we knew who the project managers were, they knew us, and we would negotiate those contracts time and again, if they were renewed every 5 years or if they came out, brand spanking new, they knew who we were. Mm-hmm. And there was a level of trust that came from the integrity of our business, the way we did business. That has been the biggest change. We've seen with central purchasing now that you're just a number, and a lot of the tenders are based on checking boxes. There's no relationship. And so that's been lost. And with that loss, when owners are looking for the lowest competitive price, that's what they pick and that's what they get. Right. And so and that's disappointing to us because we know that we would have done the job right the first time. And sometimes we see some of these projects either not going ahead because they were misdirected at the beginning by using the wrong price, the wrong contractor. And it doesn't have to be just contracts with buildings. It can be the type of vehicle or piece of equipment that you buy to help you run your business. You could take the wrong piece of equipment as well. And so what happens is the owners end up paying for that over and over again. We've seen projects here that have just gone on for years that should have taken 9 months to complete, and that's the way we had proposed it. So who pays for that? As if it's municipal government, we pay for it as a taxpayer.
Yeah.
If it's provincial or federal money that's being spent,
we all pay for it.
We all pay for it. So that has been a big change for us to adapt to the central purchasing method. You're dealing with someone that may not even ever get to see you, and so that has changed the landscape for us and for many, and so it stifles growth, is what it does. And I think, do you know who Pierre Polivier is?
I am familiar with the name, certainly.
Okay, well, he's a politician who was talking about the problems with bureaucracy and what he called the gatekeepers. And these are people who they have discretionary power, and there's no accountability because someone's not overseeing them. And as government grows so large, or large corporations, and we can struggle with that in our own business,
sure,
where we all of a sudden start putting policies in place that make it restrictive
and
so you have to
redundant to other aspects of your business.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so he calls them gatekeepers, and what that does is that they just keep setting up roadblocks, and more roadblocks because that's their job, as the way they see it, and they think they're protecting, I guess, their community, their business, their job, and they can be very difficult to get around and get over. So I'll give you an example. Back in the 80s, we used to build a nice house, couple thousand square feet, double garage, from start to finish. From the time that we took it for development approval to the time we completed it, and we're handing the keys over to the owner, 3 months.
That's it.
That's unheard of.
3 months for a house.
It takes a year. It takes a year to plan and develop and build a home.
Wow.
In Fort McMurray. Not just Fort McMurray, but generally in Alberta, and I don't think it's much different anywhere else. And there's a reason. There's some checks and balances that were missed, and we've seen some of the projects in Fort McMurray that have been demolished because professionals weren't following up and making sure that the project was built. There were shady contractors who were doing building and cutting corners, and owners have paid the price. And so that's the reason we have all these checks and balances in, but it's gotten to a point where it's
perhaps the pendulum has swung too far the other way.
Too far, yeah. And there's no accountability. Who do you go to complain about that? If you complain to a planner, the next project may not go any better, maybe worse than the last one you just did because you made trouble, right? So you have to be politically correct in how you deal with your problems, and that has probably been the biggest frustration and the biggest change that I've seen in industry, where back again in the 80s and the 90s, when things slowed down here in the oil industry, we went back into the pulp and the paper industry, business, and doing multi-million-dollar projects, large projects on budget, on time, and they're much more complicated than an oil sands plant. But it's the culture today of just throwing money at it. Nobody sits down and solves the problems. There's not enough planning in advance. Project managers are jumping ship and going for the bigger dollar. There's no loyalty anymore. So those are some of the problems that I see today.
Yeah, as described, these challenges seem, they seem big. It seems like something that perhaps a new entrepreneur or someone who may not be quite used to the way things are done might find those to be almost insurmountable. What have been your strategies up until now to be able to sort of navigate this new way of doing business?
We bring along with us a very long history of projects that we've done. So we've got a tremendous amount of experience that we can demonstrate, whether we want to build a 200-foot high structure, on the side of a chimney out at the plant site, or we want to build a 3-story office complex or build a reservoir. We've got that experience. The problem is, in a small community like this, is it's been spread out over 40 years. And when you have to check a box that says, have you built 3 fire stations in the last 5 years? When you live in Fort McMurray, you can't say that. So it eliminates you.
Right.
And that's not just in Fort McMurray. It's generally how central purchasing works in that world. So to overcome that, sometimes you have to be innovative, maybe partner up with another contractor and work together. Quite often you can capitalize on the experience of your architect and your professionals and put together a good package. So that's how we work through that. There's new ways of doing business today too. There's what's called an IDP, which is called Integrated Project Development System. And so we've all gone for training on that. And that's where the owners and the consultants and the larger trades and the general contractor work together collaboratively to plan, design, and build a project. and you all share on the profit at the end. And so that's been working quite successfully on larger projects. We did a project in Okotoks a few years ago for about $50 million, a 3-year project. It was nice. And of course, we didn't have the experience that some of the other contractors did. But those are the ways that we need to change.
Yeah.
We do business. And even to partner up with another contractor to provide that.
It seems like it seems to me like in all industries, the way that you've described this is collaboration. I mean, it just seems to me more and more the fact that we're just so well connected in the modern day that just collaboration is a part of doing business in all, whether it's an industry like commercial construction or even running a restaurant. It seems like we're at an advantage when we choose to work together with another like-minded person or a knowledgeable group.
Yeah, well, you can see that even where the banks, they're all collectively together up in Timberlake.
Yeah, sure. Great example.
And so we deal with 3 banks, and so when I want to go do banking and I've got 3 deposits, I go up to Thickwood, and that's where I do my banking because I can walk from one to the next and do that. And so you see that with car dealerships. We go down to the bigger centers, and they're all huddled together. And you think they would be competing against each other, but they're not. And that's the idea of the CRUs, and where they have all those different. They just bring everybody together.
Yeah.
And that again is a sense of community.
That's what we're all about. Like, that's the entire point of this podcast is we want to encourage collaboration between our chamber members, or at the very least, the idea behind Chamber Voices is that like-minded business owners can they're able to understand that maybe the problems that they're facing or the successes that they're having are not unique to them, that they're able to sort of see that, Gene here from Genron deals with a similar issue. So it's really cool to hear your perspective in this way. With your vast amount of experience and your years of living in this community, you alluded to at the very start of our conversation, you've seen the good years, you've seen the not so great years. The last half a decade or so, whether we like it or not, has not been amazing for many people. But I feel like as we enter 2021 and as the first few months have kind of passed us by, there are a few things to be optimistic about. How are things looking from your perspective?
I'm always optimistic.
Sure.
And we have to be when we're leading and motivating people. We have to, as a leader, you need to cast the vision. You have to cast a vision of the future. And without that, people are not going to stay around. And they are challenging times. But I will say, again, geographically, Fort McMurray is in a very good position. We've worked in Churchill, Manitoba. That's a 3-hour flight from here.
Really? That's it?
Direct flight. I can put a crew of guys on a plane and get them there in 3 hours. And we worked there. We worked on the pulp mill in Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, which is, I guess, a 6-hour drive from here, an hour and a half flight. So I had, a team working there for 3 years on their water treatment plant and their pulp mill. And every week or 2 weeks, I'd catch a small plane from here and drop over there and have my meetings and, pat the guys on the back, see how things were going and come back here. Fort Smith, Fort Chip, Yellowknife. We worked on the Stanton Hospital. We just got off that 2 years ago. It was a saving project for us. Again, it's not that far away geographically, and everybody else is, they got to ship their material from Edmonton as well. So it's, we're in some ways in a good location.
That's interesting.
The remote work.
That's really interesting because one of the questions I've not asked, from my perspective, I had assumed that we may not be so well positioned as maybe a company based out of Edmonton, but it sounds like I'm completely off track with that. For the kind of work that you're doing, we're in a really great spot to be in Fort McMurray, to be doing the kind of work that you're doing. Yeah,
we are, and people expect to make more on their paycheck here than they would in Edmonton. But the advantage we have is that we're local, so we're not paying the travel time, we're not paying the living allowance and that's been afforded us to maintain decent wages and keep our people here. And we do have a mobile group. We've got a group of people from the East Coast that will never move here. Their families are established, and they're perfect for us because they'll work in Yellowknife and they don't mind. They'll work in Grand Prairie or Peace River in those areas. And so that's how we've developed our business and how we're going to be able to get through these difficult times, because since the wildfire, it just hasn't got any better. And now with COVID, it's gotten even worse. We've got so many desperate contractors out there vying for the same job that they're making big mistakes, whether it's on purpose or not. They're working on a negative cash flow and a deficit before they ever start. So
wow.
We make enough mistakes in business without doing it on purpose, and that's what we're up against. But right now, Site C Dam, we just got a phone call the other day, and that's the one that's being built in Hudson Hope in BC. And of course, we worked on that many, many years ago, when originally back in the 60s and before my time. And
pre-Genron days.
Yeah, pre-Genron days. And so we got a call, from the engineering firm there and said, are you interested? And so this is the second go around now that they've decided that they are going to go ahead on it. And, so we're looking at opportunities there. Timmins, Ontario, we have a client that we work for in Fort McMurray. They're a national, worldwide company, and they like what we do. And they said, it's busy in Ontario. Are you interested? So there are opportunities for us. Okay. And we do have a mobile team of people that are willing to move. And I even talked to my own son. I said, if we get a job in Grand Prairie, that's, a year or two long, are you prepared to do that? And yes, of course, and so it's nice when you have that loyalty from your employees, and they're on board with the changes that we have to make to survive as a business. And that's good for the community here, because our clients want to know that we're going to be here to serve them for the future when times get good again.
Sure, and they will. I got to say, well, I mean it, Gene. It means a lot to have been able to sit down and have a conversation with you. Even though we're not in the same room yet and we haven't physically had a chance to meet one another in person, that day is coming soon. So Gene Dobie, the president and general manager of Genron, you can find out more about them at genron.ca. Gene, we'll be talking again soon. Thank you for your involvement with Chamber Voices and for your strong support of the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce over the years.
Yeah, well, we're going to stay involved and support the Chamber and our community. So we'll be seeing more of each other, I'm sure.